Hello everyone, my name is James Matteson, and today I'm going to be discussing 3 recently released rap albums. First one is going to be No Hands by Joey Valence and Brae, next one is going to be Ultra 85 by Logic, and the third and final one is going to be Bando of the New World by Childish Gambino. Yeah, this is my first proper YouTube video that I've really done on this channel. I've uploaded short films I've done in the past to here, but this is the first one I've done where I'm really talking to the camera. And yeah, I feel like I don't really know what this channel is going to evolve into in the future, but for right now I think I'm planning on kind of just talking about stuff I'm interested in, mostly music and movies. Most likely going to be in the review format like this. I like the format where I pick 3 albums or 3 movies or 3 whatever that I feel like I have something to say about, and then I just talk about them with you guys. And so yeah, let's get right into the first one. No Hands, Joey Valence and Brae. So No Hands is the second album by the American hip-hop duo Joey Valence and Brae. So the two met in college and they started making music together for fun. Interestingly, Joey Valence actually started off as more of an EDM producer before transitioning into making hip-hop beats, which is interesting context that I will circle back to later, but if you've heard the album, you probably can guess why that's interesting. But yeah, the two have been gaining popularity on the internet the past couple years. I know that they were on The Ellen Show in 2022, back when that was still airing. The title track off of their first album, Pump Tactics, became a very popular TikTok song for a little while there. And all of that leads us to the release of their second album, No Hands, which I personally think is really fantastic. The duo has been compared a lot to the Beastie Boys since they've kind of broken through. But I feel like this album really proves that they're much more than just Beastie Boys for Zoomers. They've got a genuine fresh sound. I feel like they're really doing their own thing. The main sound of the album is that they're fusing 90s hip-hop production with some more modern sensibilities, and they're also fusing house and dance music with hip-hop. And it's important to note as well that they actually did do a similar thing on their first album with just combining dance and hip-hop, but to a lesser extent. I feel like they really push it much further on this album, which is really interesting to me and really works in my opinion. And bringing back my point from before, I think it's really fascinating to see them play around with this type of music, considering Joey's past with the genre and his obvious love for it. And I think that by synthesizing these two things together, they're really creating a super fresh sound that I really haven't seen many other rappers, if any, doing. And as a whole, this album is just a super fun listen. The instrumentals are super colorful, and Joey Valence and Brae's rapping is just packed with so much personality, so much energy, so much charisma, and just so much chemistry between them. You can tell just by listening to the album that these guys genuinely are really good friends. And their music actually reminds me of another one of my favorite groups, Brockhampton, in that both of them will utilize these cartoony beats and chemistry between members to make up for any technical shortcomings that they might have. Joey Valence and Brae's music also has that DIY quality that made these Saturation albums initially so special too. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think this album's a total blast. It's one of my favorites of the year. I think it's awesome. I think it's a super fun listen, and I really hope that Joey Valence and Brae just keep pushing that dance hip-hop fusion thing even more on the next album, because I think that is super unique, super special, and I love it. Ultra 85 is the long-awaited 9th album by the rapper Logic. And Logic is actually a really interesting artist for me personally, in just the fact that I feel like he's very hit or miss for me. I really love his early albums. Under Pressure, Incredible True Story are really good, and I absolutely love No Pressure and Vinyl Days as well, some of his more newer stuff. And then everything else he's made is kind of fallen flat for me. I've been very mixed to just outright negative on any other project that he's really ever made. But yeah, I became really excited to hear this new one after it started getting these glowing reviews from critics, from fans. And yeah, I gotta say, I overall really agree. I think this album is really good, really solid. It just has some pretty obvious shortcomings. Overall, the actual songs, the music on this album is absolutely fantastic. The instrumentals are super lush, beautiful, and Logic's rapping is just as good as it's ever been. The songs on this thing are just all around super solid, and while I do think he definitely could have cut a couple of the songs here and there, the big issue I have with this project is the skits. And just to backtrack a little bit here, Ultra 85 is of course a prequel to the fan favorite Logic album that I just mentioned, his second album, The Incredible True Story. And just like that album, this album also features the characters of Thomas and Kai, who are these blue-collar astronauts who are out in space searching for an inhabitable planet for humanity to live on. And while the cinematic aspects have never really been my favorite element of Logic's music, I do actually really enjoy the storyline on Incredible True Story overall. I don't necessarily think the dialogue is like amazingly written or anything, but I think the voice actors are absolutely fantastic. I think they totally sell it. And it's kind of just trying to be a fun vibe. Like, I don't really think that the storyline on that album is trying to be anything super deep or anything. Overall, I'm just more mixed on Ultra 85's storyline. There are some moments that I do enjoy in there, like when Kai talks about his love of music and movies as escapism, which is a really interesting concept, especially considering that dystopian sci-fi setting that the characters find him in. It's this like very relatable kind of feeling, but it's obviously amplified and kind of exaggerated when considering that dystopian setting. But unfortunately, there are other moments that I kind of just find a little annoying, like when Thomas and Kai are arguing over who's the better director, Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino. And I mean, I like those directors too, but damn, you guys are super basic. And even looking past like the content of the skits, just the overall concept I feel like is flawed. It just feels like empty, boring fan service to me. And if you are one of those super fans that Logic is actually like serving on this album, then I'm sure it totally works for you, and I'm sure you really like it, which is awesome. But for me, as more of a casual fan, it just kind of feels a little bit eye-rolling. Personally, at this point, I'm just so much more interested in art that actively does not give fans what they think they want and delivers a new experience instead. But yeah, getting back on track, I really like this album overall. I think I would straight up love it if it wasn't for the skits, which makes the listening experience a little frustrating. And like I said, I do think that there are songs that could definitely be trimmed from the track list just to make it a leaner, tighter experience overall. Thinking songs like Antidote, 40 Forever don't do a ton for me, even though they're not like outright terrible. But yeah, it's just a super fun listen. Logic's rapping on it is absolutely fantastic. He brings a lot of introspection and vulnerability and just personality to so much of these tracks. The production is absolutely amazing as well. This is absolutely some of the best production I think people will hear on a rap album, especially a mainstream rap album, all year. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't think it's really possible for me to dislike a Childish Gambino album on really any level. So for some context here, way back in summer of 2016, I discovered his music when I was 14 years old, and I remember just really loving it pretty much instantly. Like, I remember just thinking it was super catchy, super fun. And in the months that followed that summer, I remember I played the absolute shit out of camp and because of the internet. And you guys gotta understand too that this wasn't only the moment where I fell in love with Childish Gambino's music, this was the moment where I kind of fell in love with music just in general. So before that point, I really was not very passionate about music at all. Like, I remember back in middle school, I had some Green Day songs and kind of embarrassingly some Imagine Dragons songs like downloaded onto my iPod. But discovering his music was really the moment where I started becoming really passionate about music as an art form and the album format just in general. Before getting into Gambino, I really truly do not think that I had ever even heard a full album before. So I really don't think it's being dramatic when I say that if it wasn't for Childish Gambino's music, then I don't think I would even be sitting here making this video. I gotta mention too that yeah, his early albums were also my gateway into the rap genre as a whole. Before that point, I really didn't care about rap. Like, I didn't really care about music in general, but I hadn't heard really any rap at all before that point, I don't think. And yeah, now fast forward 8 years, I'm 22 years old, and I've gone fairly deep into the genre of rap and all the surrounding subgenres of it. And yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm making this video right now about 3 rap albums. Something else I gotta mention as well is that his non-music work was also so influential for me when I was growing up as well. I remember in high school dreaming of making something similar to his Because the Internet script, that script that came along with the Because the Internet album. I read that like over and over again when I was in early high school. And his show, obviously Atlanta, it's fantastic, and yeah, I really wanted to make something that was like similar in tone to that when I was younger, and it's still one of my very favorite TV shows to this day. And I will say, I do feel like I have outgrown Childish Gambino a little bit over the years. I still love the music, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a super fan anymore. I'm not obsessive about it like I once was. Albums like Because the Internet and Awaken My Love are just always going to be classic albums in my eyes. I'll be honest, Camp really has not aged too well for me. I think I really only enjoy that album now on any level just because of nostalgia purposes. That album is just flawed for sure, and while again I still enjoy it because it was just so meaningful for me when I was growing up, it hasn't aged the best, but yeah, I still personally enjoy it. And before this, his most recent album, Ada Vista / 31520, is really good. I think that's a really solid pop album. I haven't gone back to it a ton over the years, but like, thumbs up. I enjoy that album. But yeah, that now brings us to his newest and potentially last album, at least under the Childish Gambino name, Bando of the New World. And as you can probably guess from that long spiel, I really like this album a lot. It's for sure a messy album. It jumps around in terms of like genre and tone very quickly and very frequently, so it's not the most cohesive project ever, but even still, I kind of find that interesting. It's messy in a way that I personally find compelling. And while I totally get why some people would not be a fan of messiness or sloppiness in art, like in any form, I understand that, but sometimes for me, when music or movies are messy in kind of like an artistic way, if that makes sense, I think it's really interesting and it kind of enhances the experience overall. But yeah, to get back to the genre thing, I just think it's really interesting how Donald is just so willing to experiment on this album. He's experimented on all of his albums in the past, but especially with this one in terms of, like I said, just how frequently it jumps around in terms of genre. There's so many varied genres that are explored on this thing. There's industrial hip hop, there's boom bap, there's indie rock, there are glittery love songs, alternative R&B, electronic. I'm definitely forgetting some, but yeah, there's a lot of different genres on this album, and I think that they are pulled off really successfully for the most part. And while definitely jarring, these genre and tone shifts just really keep the album feeling fresh to me. It never feels boring. Like, you can despise this album, but like listening to it, it's not going to be a boring experience just because of how often it will just jump around in terms of tone. And I'll mention real quick too, for those who don't know, this album is actually a soundtrack for a new short film or a feature. I'm not really sure what. If I had to guess, I'd say short, but it's this new film from Donald Glover with the same name, Bando of the New World, which isn't out yet. It's hopefully coming out soon. There's not really any release date announced. But yeah, this whole approach doesn't really surprise me, considering that Donald Glover has always kind of been interested in that mixed media approach to these things. Like I said before, the Because the Internet script definitely falls into that. Also, his film Guava Island from a couple years ago is definitely that as well. The issue I kind of have with it here though is if these tracks are truly supposed to be like a soundtrack for the movie, then what's up with the lack of news for the movie, you know? Like, I feel like we are missing some context for these tracks just because we aren't able to hear them in the context of the film, which, like I said, if it is a true soundtrack album, then that's the way that the songs were meant to be heard at the end of the day, you know? So yeah, that's annoying. I don't really understand the lack of news for the movie. I know he's on tour right now, so hopefully during or after the tour it'll get some sort of release. I know that there was like an IMAX thing as well at the end of the trailer or something like that, but yeah, hopefully it comes out soon. So the biggest miss for me in the album would definitely be the song Can You Feel Me? And I mean, not to be weird, obviously, because this, if you've heard the album, you know that this is like a song featuring Donald's son. It's this really cute moment for them. But the song just doesn't really work for me. It just feels a little too musical theater-y, like almost Disney, if that makes sense. And I mean, I just don't want to be an asshole, you know, because I mean, it is like a cute song with this kid, but it's just a little obnoxious for me. It's like a tad obnoxious. And while I think that the closer track, A Place Where Love Goes, is super catchy, I do wish that the album had kind of ended in maybe a more grander or just bigger way in general. Again, I like that track, but it just doesn't really feel like a closer to me. I mean, again, maybe it'll make more sense in the context of the movie, but for right now, we don't know. So yeah, I mean, that's another album that I really liked. I do not think that it really comes close at all to the heights of Awaken My Love or Because of the Internet, but I think it's a really fun summery vibe, and like I said, it's very scatterbrained, very messy, but in a way that I really respect, in a way that actually does work for me. Alright, so yeah, this is going to be the end of this video. I had a lot of fun doing these reviews, these 3 mini reviews. I think my next video is going to be another review in the same format as this one, but instead of the 3 albums, it's going to be 3 movies. So yeah, look forward to that, and yeah, bye.